second episode of LinkedIn special series ETCIO Unfiltered, where we delve into the minds of exceptional individuals who have left an indelible mark on the world of technology and business. In this installment, we have the privilege of conversing with the visionary leader Shrikant Vellamakanni, who is the co-founder and group chief executive officer of Fractal. He has not only harnessed the power of innovation, but has also navigated the challenging terrain of entrepreneurship to create something truly extraordinary. Join us as we uncover the childhood experiences that have intricately shaped his entrepreneurial spirit, explore the pivotal milestones that have marked his career, and gain insights into the captivating saga of turning a startup into a unicorn. Let's get started. Welcome, Shrikant. Welcome on this conversation.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. Great to be here.
Shrikant, can we begin by you sharing a few childhood experiences that you believe have shaped your entrepreneurial spirit today?
Sure. The first thing I'll mention is that I didn't start out to be an entrepreneur. In fact, entrepreneurship was not on my roadmap at all. When I grew up, I used to live in Assam, and my father used to work for an oil company, and he used to tell me that there's no such thing as an honest businessman. An honest businessman is an oxymoron. That was one assumption I worked with. The second assumption was that the world that I was experiencing, India of the 1980s and 1990s, was a very different kind of a world. And here you needed capital to create capital. So these are the two assumptions. It's a bad world, honest businessman is an oxymoron, and that you need capital to create capital. So because of these two assumptions, I never really thought I would become an entrepreneur. So I grew up loving math. I was, always interested in mathematics and how, the amazing insights that math delivers. I was just fascinated by the world of mathematics, probability, statistics, and so on. And then during my engineering days, I discovered that apart from mathematics, what I really loved was understanding human behavior, psychology. So as an elective, I took a course on psychology. So this combination of understanding human behavior through math, it came together in my head somewhere around that time that, yes, mathematics is amazing. And by the way, you can use math to understand the really complex thing called human behavior. So when we started out at Fractal, the first thing we did was to predict customer default on credit cards. So we were trying to automate a lending product. So we would look at the data. So the idea was you could walk into a retail store and get a loan and walk out. And behind the scenes, we would use your information to predict whether you're going to default on a loan or not default on the loan. And using that, we'll make a decision on whether to give you a loan or not. So this, we used math. So use math and statistics and probabilities and various kinds of, call it logistic regression, whatever. We were using those kinds of things to predict who's going to default. And because we were predicting human behavior through math, this was like a deadly combination. The second thing we did was to look at what changes were happening during the 2001 recession. When people were, they were changing their behavior in terms of how they consume products. They would reduce the consumption of luxury products. The frequency of consumption will go down, or sometimes they would actually trade for cheaper products. Sometimes they would become promotion sensitive. We saw some changes in the way people behaved because of recessionary conditions. Again, we could see in the mathematics and of the data that this was happening. To understand human behavior through math again, this combination just helped us realize the value and the importance of math and human behavior in the way organizations make decisions. And the next 20 years has been about building that company, which is a trusted partner of Fortune 100 companies.
Shrikant, your career map, if we were to draw it on the table, it's quite diverse. So you've been on all sides of the table. You've been in corporate, then you moved on to become an entrepreneur. What would you say was one of the key milestones in your career that propelled you to where you are today?
Yeah, I started my early career with a bank. I did some asset-backed and mortgage-backed debt with a couple of investment banks in India. And one of those was with ICICI Limited before it turned into a bank. And the culture of ICICI was quite entrepreneurial. So the idea was in ICICI, you could do a really large deal all by yourself. I was just 1 year out of business school, and the trust that ICICI was placing in me to go and do large deals was something that I found to be quite exhilarating. So one of the things we did even at Fractal was to create this entrepreneurial kind of a culture where you basically trust the people to do the right thing and put them in increasingly challenging situations and give them a lot of autonomy to do what they do best. This has really worked for me. But this was a pivotal moment in case of my ICICI days. The other thing I noticed during my first job was that the culture inside Indian companies was still quite hierarchical. And honestly, I wasn't very happy with that. So in my first month of training, management training at a bank, I was doing the trade finance section of the bank. And I was in the first day of the training, I was looking for the restrooms at some point of time during the day. And then somebody just handed out a couple of keys to me and said, these are the keys to the restroom. I was really shocked. You need keys to the restrooms? Anyway, it turned out that these were the executive restrooms, or there were different restrooms for different people. And this was it just bothered me a lot that, somebody who's worked for this bank for 10 years, maybe in a clerical position, did not have access to the restroom that me, was like day one as a management trainee, had access to. I didn't like that about the culture. So one of the things we've done in Fractal is to create a culture which is everybody plays by the same rules. So that makes a difference. There's no hierarchy. It's a flat organization, and people are as good as what they're able to contribute. And it's not just about their seniority, it's about their intellect. It's not about their experience, it's about their ability to solve problems.
So scaling a startup to a unicorn status is no small feat, and we have understood that very clearly by now. Could you share the pivotal factors that contributed to Fractal's incredible growth in the recent years?
I'll give you the most simplest and yet powerful example here. It's a law of compounding. The law of compounding is something that none of us can fathom. I'll tell you the story of a big private equity fund, sovereign wealth fund that I met a few years back. And they were talking about how they started with a 250 million fund in the 1970s, and now how it had become 250 billion fund in 45 years. And I was shocked by that scale. 1000x. What would be the rate of return? What would be the rate of growth of the fund? And I was thinking maybe very high. It turns out the rate of return was only about 16%. But if something grows by 16%, it goes from X to 1000x in 45 years. It's not possible to figure out. Our mind cannot wrap around that kind of a reality. But it is real. Compounding is real. So I think part of Fractal success is also about the steady compounding that we've experienced. We built a business which is client-centric, people-oriented, and where we spend a ton of money on doing research and inventing and investing on behalf of clients. And that means that every year we got a little bit better than the previous year. And this steady accumulation in terms of revenue, in terms of profitability, in terms of the quality of people we could hire, quality of problems we could solve, we made steady progress. And the steady progress looks like an overnight sensation 20 years later. So when we looked at our revenue curve, we cumulatively delivered more than $1 billion of revenue to our clients, right? We've solved more than $1 billion worth of problems over the last 20 years. If you see, a lot of the revenues came in the last few years, but it's not that the first few years were not important. It's just that steady compounding that creates this kind of a incredibly exponential results. When you look back, it looks great. But the point is that at that time, during the early 2000s when we started, we just had to keep our head down and keep building a business that is client-centric, people-oriented, and investment-oriented or R&D oriented. And we keep making steady progress, knowing that it'll become magical sometime soon. Just don't know when. It's like how a kid grows up and suddenly becomes an adult, and you feel like, oh my God, when did that happen? When did that change happen?
It was years ago, yeah.
Yes.
Shrikant, of course, which means challenges must be aplenty. What were some of the key lessons that you learned during this time when you were scaling up to be a unicorn?
The thing about entrepreneurship is that nobody tells you how difficult it is. entrepreneurship is really hard and the odds of success are very low.
Okay.
So of every entrepreneur who starts with this dreamy vision, only half of them survive first 2 years.
Okay.
And only 2 in 100 survive at the end of 10 years. So entrepreneurship is a 2% odds game. And, and we are lucky to have survived those 10 years. And we are in that 2% category of people. So entrepreneurship is hard. So, and there are multiple challenges and you make a lot of mistakes because by the time you really have all the experience to become an entrepreneur, you're just too old to be an entrepreneur. So you have to, at some point of time, make the decision that I'll be an entrepreneur, regardless of the fact that I don't have all the experience that I need. And then you have to figure out, make mistakes and learn from them. The one thing you have to do is to not make the same mistake again and again and make maybe new mistakes, maybe bigger mistakes and fail faster and get better faster. But every time we made mistakes, we got better. So a couple of examples I'll tell you. One example is of client centricity. So I told you we built a client-centric, people-oriented, and R&D-oriented business over the last many years, but it was not the case very early on. Very early on, we were very much about analytics and about math and psychology and all of that, and we really did not care as much about delivering client results. Now, it seems quite odd to admit that here or to feel that any company could be that way. But I had a conversation with a gentleman called Shrikant Gupte, who was a coach. He wanted to coach me. So he spent a couple of days in our office. And after those few days, he came and told me, Shrikant, you're the most client-unfriendly business I've ever met.
Oh, okay.
And I was really shocked. I was very shocked to hear that. I said, no way. This is not possible. We solve such amazing problems. We've got such great clients. Obviously, we care about the results. Look at our walls. It says client value creation. That's one of our values. It's not possible. I was, by my usual response to any criticism is first I defend before I accept, before I process it. So I did tell him that no, he was wrong. But then I went back and thought about it for a couple of days. And then I came back and talked to our executive team and said that this is what I heard from Mr. Shrikant Gupte, and he's a very smart guy. And when we sort of looked, we realized that we were obviously always critical of our clients. We used to think that, hey, we are so good at what we do. It's just the clients don't get it, etc. We were obsessed with the craft of analytics and AI. We were not obsessed about delivering results with AI for our clients. It seems like a subtle difference, but there's a big difference in actually being obsessed with the craft versus obsessed with delivering results. So that big change happened in our head. Once we internalize it, we said, we have to become the most client-friendly organization. We started measuring our net promoter score. And the next many, many years, our net promoter scores kept improving. And now our net promoter score is at 73.
As we wrap up this episode, it's abundantly clear that Shrikant's journey is a testament to the heights that can be reached with a potent blend of education, determination, and unyielding vision. From his formative years to becoming a beacon of entrepreneurship, his story is one that encapsulates resilience, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Shrikant for sharing his insights, experiences, and aspirations with us today. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us in this exploration of the mind and heart of a true tech visionary. Stay tuned for more enriching conversations on ETCIO Unfiltered's LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Special Series. Thank you and have a good day.